The wind rattled the glass doors of Valley Mart, a modest grocery store tucked between a laundromat and a payday loan office. The kind of place people didn't think twice about unless they worked there. The automatic doors squeaked as a man stepped inside. He was tall, mid-50s, graying beard, dark hoodie pulled low, hands tucked into his worn jeans. No name, badge, no introductions. He didn't want anyone knowing who he was. Not yet. That man was Harlan Price, the silent co-owner of the entire Valley Mart chain. But today he wasn't Mr. Price. He was just a customer with no wallet and a busted story. Harlan hadn't always been so skeptical. Years ago, he believed loyalty ran as deep as paychecks. That if you treated employees fairly, they'd give you the same respect in return. But a few recent reports shook him. Late clock-ins, stolen stock, a manager accused of pocketing overtime cuts. Most disturbing of all, customers quietly complaining about being treated like burdens instead of people, especially the ones who looked poor. Harlan needed to know what was really happening in his stores, not what HR dressed up in memos. So he picked the busiest location, showed up unannounced, dressed like a man on his last leg. He walked slowly, observing. A middle-aged woman in a striped apron was wiping down the self-checkout screens, muttering about lazy customers. A teenage boy in headphones stalked shelves half-heartedly, dragging his feet. At register 2, a cashier was arguing with an elderly woman over expired coupons. No eye contact, no warmth, just policy. Harlan grabbed a loaf of bread, a box of tea, and some soup, barely $12 worth. Then he stepped into the express lane. The cashier glanced at him and did a double take. She was young, early 20s maybe, wavy brown hair tied in a puffball under a faded Valley Mart cap. Her name tag said Jada. "Hey there," she smiled. "Weather's got everyone grumpy today. You doing all right, sir?" He gave a nervous chuckle. "Honestly, forgot my wallet. Was hoping to pay you back tomorrow, if that's all right." Jada paused. Her fingers hovered over the screen. Most clerks would have said no without blinking, but she looked him over, his worn coat, the slight tremble in his hands, and nodded slowly. "Hold on," she said. Then, without hesitation, she swiped her own debit card. Harlan blinked. "You didn't have to." "It's fine," Jada said quickly. "Everyone forgets sometimes. Just pay it forward, yeah." He looked at her again, deeper now. She wasn't just kind. She was tired. Her uniform shirt had a bleach stain near the hem. Her shoes had the kind of wear that said she stood for hours. And she hadn't hesitated for a second to help someone she thought had less than her. He nodded and took the bag. "Thank you," he said, his voice heavier than she realized. Behind him, a voice snapped, "Jada, step into my office." Now, it was Manager Doyle, a broad-shouldered man with a clipboard permanently attached to his hand. His smile never reached his eyes. Once inside the back office, Doyle's tone dropped the mask. "You think we're running a charity here?" he hissed. "You just paid for a stranger's groceries on company time. That's theft." Jada stiffened. "It was $12. I used my own card." "Doesn't matter. You made us liable. What if he walked out and caused trouble? You think this is some feel-good drama? This is retail. Rules exist for a reason." "But You've got two options," Doyle interrupted. "Clock out for the day, or clock out for good." Harlan stood just outside the door. He had heard everything. He didn't reveal himself, not yet. Instead, he quietly walked back in, set his bag on the counter, and left. But something had shifted. He had seen who Jada was, and who Doyle was pretending to be. The next morning, he returned with a plan. This time, he wore a different disguise. Clean shirt, clipboard, and a name tag. Henry, Regional Compliance. He approached the front of the store with confidence. "Surprise audit," he told Doyle, whose face went white. Sure. Didn't get a heads up from corporate." "That's the point," Harlan said coolly. He walked the floor, asked the staff questions. Most were nervous, mechanical. Jada kept her head down, moving faster than anyone else. He noticed that, took notes, noticed how she stopped a kid from slipping in a spill, offered help to an elderly man with a cart, and still made no fuss about doing more than her share. Then he checked the schedule logs. Jada had worked 9 days straight. No overtime pay. 2 skipped breaks marked voluntary, and 0 write-ups until yesterday. By noon, Harlan called a staff meeting. Everyone stood in the break room, puzzled. Jada stayed quiet near the back, arms crossed. Harlan cleared his throat. I was sent to this store to observe something. See how employees treat each other and customers. I posed as someone who didn't have enough money. Only one person treated me like a human being. He turned to Jada. And that was you. Gasps rippled through the room. He pulled off his fake tag. My name is Harlan Price. I co-own the Valley Mart chain. Jada's mouth fell open. And you? He turned sharply to Doyle. You threatened to fire her for kindness. For showing the kind of heart I wish more of our stores had. Doyle stammered. I didn't realize. No, you didn't, Harlan interrupted. But I did. I heard everything. And I've made a decision. He looked at Jada. Effective immediately. You're promoted to assistant manager. And we're going to cover your tuition. I read your file. You're putting yourself through school. That changes. Now. Tears welled up in her eyes. And Doyle. Harlan's voice darkened. Your services are no longer needed at Valley Mart. You forgot the people behind the policies. Silence. Pure, stunned silence. The staff clapped as Doyle stormed out, red-faced. Jada stood frozen. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything, Harlan replied. Just keep being exactly who you are. As the store slowly returned to business, Harlan lingered near the exit. Watching, Jada had stepped into her new role with quiet grace. Staff who once ignored her now looked to her for direction, and for the first time in a long while the store felt alive. But just as he turned to leave, a man in a dark suit appeared near the front window. He wasn't a customer. He stood silently, watching the store with narrowed eyes. In his hand was a tablet, with security footage paused on an image of Harlan inside another. Valley Mart, in disguise. The man tapped the screen, then made a call. Yeah, we found him. He's been going undercover. And not everyone wants the truth he's digging up. It had been 3 days since Jada was promoted. The energy at Valley Mart had shifted. The aisles were cleaner. Customers smiled back. Staff clocked in on time. And somewhere in the background, like a shadow passing through sunlight, Harlan Price quietly observed it all. But the peace wouldn't last. Not after what he exposed. Not after who saw him. In a quiet, upper-floor boardroom far from the store's parking lot, the air was heavy with polished silence and corporate tension. A man in a sleek gray suit stood beside a mounted screen. On it, paused surveillance footage, grainy but clear. It showed Harlan dressed in his homeless disguise. Across from the screen sat a woman with cold eyes and a steely voice. Clarissa Vale, Chief Operating Officer. And, more importantly, the one person in corporate who didn't want Harlan interfering. He's running solo audits? She asked flatly. The man nodded. 3rd time this month. 2 stores in Chicago, 1 in Phoenix. Always off books. Clarissa's jaw tightened. And always with the same pattern. He plays broke, gets cozy with the floor staff, and then starts firing managers like he's cleaning house. He's making waves. No, she said, her tone turning sharp. He's threatening the structure I built. And it stops now. Back at the store, Jada was learning fast. She'd been thrown into scheduling, break management, and now had a set of keys that jingled. Like they carried responsibility with every step. Harlan had given her room to grow, his only instruction: don't change. Don't let the title make you forget who you were before it. But not everyone shared his sentiment. Some employees whispered behind her back that she was just lucky, that she kissed up to the old man, that she only got the job because she paid for someone's soup. Jada brushed it off until the anonymous complaints started showing up. First in the break room, then in the system. Jada extended her break again. Jada's playing favorites with shift swaps. Jada turned a blind eye to theft. All of it lies, but someone was clearly trying to build a case against her. Slowly, quietly, like rot beneath polished wood. Later that week, a new face arrived at the store. A clean-shaven man in a Valley Mart compliance jacket. Name tag, Ken, Audit Division. He smiled too easily, asked too few questions. Took photos of everything, especially Jada. She approached him cautiously. Didn't know we were getting another audit. Ken smiled. Just standard follow-up. We do random visits after major staff changes. She nodded slowly, but something about him made her stomach twist. When she told Harlan later, his eyes narrowed. There's no division called Audit Division. That night, Harlan dug through the corporate access logs. Clarissa had flagged the store, scheduled a review, and added a note. Subject, Jada Benson. Loyalty review. Leadership test pending. The words chilled him, because he knew what leadership tests really meant in Clarissa's world. Sabotage setups and pressure. If Jada passed, they'd bury it. If she cracked, they'd use it to tighten control. This wasn't about rules anymore. It was about reminding Harlan who really ran things when he wasn't looking. The next morning, a situation exploded. A customer accused Jada of stealing her phone. Said she saw Jada pocket it near register 3. The accusation was loud, public. Security was called. Jada stood frozen, hands raised, her voice trembling as she said, I didn't touch anything. I swear. A crowd gathered. Phones came out. Harlan arrived within minutes, having been alerted by another cashier. He reviewed the camera footage himself. What he saw. The customer planted the phone behind a stack of sale flyers, then screamed theft seconds. Later, it was a setup. Obvious. Ugly. And someone in corporate had likely paid for it. By that evening, Harlan called Clarissa. This ends now, he growled. You sent someone after her. Clarissa's voice was calm, measured, dangerous. I sent someone to test her integrity. Isn't that what you wanted? To see who's loyal? She passed. You failed. She passed this test, Clarissa said coolly. But how well do you really know her? Dig a little deeper, Harlan. Everyone's got something to hide. That night, Jada sat in her car long after closing. She held her keys loosely, staring at the small blue manager's badge clipped to her jacket. She should have felt proud. She should have felt secure. Instead, she felt watched, because someone had left a note tucked into her windshield wiper. Just 6 words, written in all caps. You're not who he thinks. The next morning, Harlan returned early, before sunrise, before the doors opened. He wanted to clear the air with Jada, to warn her about Clarissa, to protect her. But when he entered the store, Jada wasn't there, and neither was her name in the employee schedule. It was like she'd vanished. He checked her locker. Empty. Checked the back office. Wiped. Even her staff file had been deactivated in the system, like someone had scrubbed her existence overnight. Then a beep. A notification on his personal phone. Unknown number. Attached was a photo. Jada. In a hallway. Hands against a wall. 2 private security men holding her down. And a caption. Should have done your homework, Harlan. The rain came down in sheets, soaking the pavement outside Valley Mart before sunrise. Harlan. Price stood under the overhang, unmoving, staring at the front doors like they might open and undo the last 24 hours. But they didn't, and Jada was still gone. Inside, the store moved like clockwork. Fluorescents hummed, boxes slammed. Aisle music whispered half-hearted pop through cracked ceiling speakers. But it all felt hollow. He walked in, slow and deliberate, like a man returning to the scene of something sacred that had been defiled. Mr. Price? Whispered Maria, one of the cashiers. They said she just left. She didn't just leave, Harlan replied. She was pushed. Back in the office, he reviewed the security tapes. There was Jada being led through the back hallway. 2 men in suits, not security. Not anyone from their company officially. One held her wrist. Another carried a manila envelope. There was no struggle, no confrontation, just fear. She didn't even look back. Harlan's phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Another message. She's not who you think. You trusted the wrong one. Attached was a file. PDF. Employee file. Jada Benson. Sealed. He hesitated before opening it. Inside, a juvenile record sealed by the state. A shoplifting charge at age 14. Foster care. Placement. Another note about associating with known offenders in her early 20s. And at the bottom, do not promote. Internal flag, high risk for theft-related incidents. His stomach tightened. He leaned back, staring at the wall like it might blink. All this time, Clarissa had been waiting for him to fail, to vouch for someone she could discredit with a file she hid from him. But he didn't care. That record, he whispered, is the reason she was stronger than any of us. 3 hours later, he was in Phoenix. Not in the corporate high-rise. Not in his usual office. No driver. No tie. Just a hoodie, jeans, and a folded flyer he pulled from the Valley Mart employee bulletin. It was a hand-drawn ad for a poetry slam, stuck on the break room corkboard weeks ago. Jada's name was at the bottom. The event was in a small community center, tucked between two boarded-up storefronts. Inside, the lighting was soft, the chairs folding, and the crowd intimate. Young faces, tired faces, laughter, nerves. Nobody knew Harlan, and that was the point. She was third up, wearing the same faded jacket she used to wear at the register. She stepped onto the stage and stood behind the mic. Then she read, "They told me kindness was weakness, told me feeding a stranger was theft. But where I come from, you feed whoever's hungry, even if the system says they're not starving enough. They said I don't belong in leadership, that my name ain't clean enough, my file ain't smooth enough. But I've walked through places where leaders wouldn't last a lunch break. I lost my job for standing up, and I'd do it again, because if integrity ain't worth a paycheck, then what is?" She stepped back. The applause was thunderous. Harlan stood frozen in the back, something in his chest cracking. Not from betrayal, but from the weight of knowing she was exactly who he thought she was. After the crowd dispersed, she spotted him. Jada didn't smile, didn't flinch, just met his eyes like she'd been expecting him. "You knew," she said softly. "You saw the file." He nodded. "They used it to scare me," she said, "to remind me I don't belong. They didn't fire me, Harlan. They made me disappear." "I'm sorry," he said, his voice thick. "I should have protected you." She shook her head. "You gave me a shot when nobody else would. That matters." Silence stretched between them. Then she added, "But I'm not coming back. I'm not here to bring you back," he said. "I'm here to ask for your help." Back in Phoenix HQ, the board was meeting. Clarissa sat at the head, surrounded by shareholders and executives, all polished smiles and rehearsed agendas. She was midway through her quarterly presentation when the doors opened. Harlan walked in without announcement. Behind him, Jada. Murmurs rippled across the table. Clarissa's jaw set tight. "Harlan, we weren't expecting." "No, you weren't," he interrupted. "And that's the problem." He stepped forward, placing Jada's sealed file on the table. "This is what you used to justify blackballing an employee. A file from over a decade ago. Child's mistake. Sealed. Protected by law. And you used it to erase her." Clarissa kept her tone measured. "We're a company of policy, not emotion." "No," Harlan said, his voice rising. "You're a company of control. You forgot the purpose of these stores. It's not just profit. It's people. And the moment we punish the ones who care the most, we lose everything." He paused, then motioned to Jada. "This woman paid for a stranger's groceries with her own money. She took verbal abuse, threats, and betrayal and still showed up every day. If that doesn't qualify as leadership, then none of us do." Clarissa's smile didn't waver. "She's not an employee anymore." "No," Harlan said. "She's something better." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a single sheet of paper. "I'm appointing her as the new director of employee experience, reporting directly to me. She'll oversee training, ethics, and staff well-being across all locations." Gasps echoed across the room. "You don't have the authority to," Clarissa started. "I own the company," Harlan replied calmly. "Remember." Jada stood still for a moment, blinking. "I thought you said you weren't here to bring me back." I didn't, Harlan said. I'm here to give you the platform to change things. She stared down at the contract. Then slowly she picked up the pen. I'll do it, she said. But only if we open the sealed files on everyone. Clean slate. No more secret blacklists. Harlan nodded. Agreed. Clarissa stood abruptly and walked out, her heels clicking like hammers on tile. Weeks passed, and Valley Mart felt different. Staff meetings became community forums. Training included compassion. No tolerance signs came down, replaced by posters reading, "Lead with humanity." Employees who had once walked on eggshells now walked with purpose. One evening, Jada sat in her new office, still small, but hers. A young cashier knocked gently. "Hey," the girl said, "there's a guy out front. Says he forgot his wallet. Wants to pay us back. Tomorrow." Jada smiled. "Ring it up," she said. "I've got it." Across the city, Harlan stood alone in the store where it all began. He looked around. No fanfare, no applause, just regular people doing honest work. And for the first time in a long while, he felt like he was finally doing the same. He walked toward the exit, hands in his pockets. Just before the doors opened, he stopped. On the bulletin board near the exit hung a new flyer. It read, "We're not just a company, we're a second chance. Pay it forward. Protect the ones who care. Stand up, even when it costs you." He stared at it for a moment, then smiled just barely. "Justice," he whispered, "isn't loud, it's steady."